All right. So coming up to the stage, we have first Zeno Robinson. If you're not familiar, There we go. There we go. So I need to run through the credits. You know, One Punch Man, Agretsuko. We have Zeno Robinson over here. Yeah, please take that microphone. And then following up, we have Ricco Fajardo. Yeah, that's right. Dr. Stone, Bruce Basket. And then, last but not least, we have the very, very talented and very kind Rómulo Bernal. Everybody, please.
Fajardo, Bernal.
Roll the Mars.
It's all right. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, my mom's Nicaraguan, so
Cool. All right.
I got the R's.
I wouldn't have been offended though. I'm used to it. So.
What do you usually get? How do you get your name pronounced?
Rómulo.
Romulo?
Yeah. They put the accent in the wrong area, but I don't care. I don't care. It's totally fine. I really
You
don't.
roll the R at Robinson.
All right. Well, this is our panel, everybody. So just to, like I said, if you're just joining us, just want to set some ground rules. I had spoken to the larger audience before we got into this. We're going to have a conversation, okay? And to get the shortcut of what I want to achieve with what I'm telling you right now is that this isn't Twitter, okay? We're not expecting you to stick the landing, all right? We're not expecting you to be perfect. We're expecting you to be a person, to engage with other people that have an expertise, that are part of a profession that we are discussing, and to give yourself and others grace, okay? Be patient. We have time, we can use it, and we're gonna have a very good conversation. We're gonna get into some stuff, because what is this? Collectively, we have how many years of experience being a non-white person in an industry dominated by
I think I
white
honestly
people?
say my whole life.
Yeah, exactly.
Same. My whole life.
So we will get through it, and we're gonna be fine. And yeah, let's get into it. A couple of things I wanted to say off the top to kind of establish some a benchmark, right? So a Boston University communications professor had done a study back in 1970, right? This study took into account about 1,100 cartoon characters at the time across 20 different shows. What the study found is that only about 42 of them were black characters out of 1,100, and only 47 were every other race. So in 1970, there's already a huge race disparity leaning towards white characters. And that's not even taking into account anime, right? Because the advent of anime was closer to the 1980s. 1980s, you see like the original Gundam and so on and so forth. Now go over into the 1990s, where, and this is this study was just done for gender, right? And the nuances of that conversation have just become more richer and complex since that time. But in the 1980s, starting actually the 1980s, you saw the ratio of male to female characters being 1 to 4, which was an improvement from the 1970s, which you had 1 to 8, going into the 1980s, it was 1 to 6, and now, 1990s, 1 to 4. That being said, and you can probably infer loosely what that means for female characters of color, voice actors of color, and so on and so forth. Now it brings us to here, present time. About 2020, mid-pandemic, we had a lot of great strides. Some would probably argue like their hands were forced, right? We had the departure of Jenny Slate from Big Mouth, voicing Missy. Jenny Slate being a Jewish white woman. She was voicing a half-Jewish, half-black character in Missy and Big Mouth, right? Ayo Edebiri, another comedian, takes up that role mid-2020. And then from there, the voice actor for Cleveland, also a white person, and the voice actor for Apu, and yeah, and then also you had the introduction of The Simpsons, huge show, right? Can't be understated how long that show's been on the air and the voice talent on there. They themselves put out a statement saying that no longer the non-white characters will be voiced by white actors. So that being said, that brings us to this conversation right here. So thanks for that little history lesson and the patience.
You're caught up now.
So here we are, and then we're going to discuss anime specifically. That's the thing to keep in mind here. We're using American cartoons or non-anime cartoons as like a sort of benchmark. We'll go from there to anime. So, that being said, I'm going to bring it over here. And my first sort of introductory question is, I guess, getting into the nitty-gritty of it, has it improved since you started?
Has what improved?
Good. So
Specificity, darling.
has your ability to find work, both meaningful and creative, expanded and improved since you first started voice acting?
Yep. Oh.
Personally, yeah. I feel like that's in part of industry changes, right? Like, and that is also a part of me as an actor advocating for myself. Oftentimes, I would get like auditions where it would be like 15 characters or 20 characters or 5 characters in a show. Like if we're talking about like American cartoons, and often my reps would like send me the black guy, right? And sometimes the black guy wasn't even in my range. He'd be like 35, and I don't sound like a 35. Oh, I probably can. But like, yeah, but like in my pocket, there'd be like some 15-year-old or some 17-year-old, non-black character that I could probably play more accurately that they would not send me for. So I'd have to ask for it. And I think on top of like DreamWorks on their audition sites, they have a disclaimer that we do not cast based on such and such. We're open to all people regardless of race, ethnicity. That wasn't always in there when I started. That was not always like their disclaimer. That was a recent addition they made, like I think post 2017 or 18 or something. So I'd say yes. The amount of opportunities that have come my way has changed since I started. Yeah.
I'd say yes and no, in my experience. I and not just specifically for voice acting, because I've done theater for a long time with the school EC Irvine. Spent a lot of time in New York auditioning for Broadway and stuff. And just in shorts, to give you like a from the hip idea of what it was like, auditioning for Broadway shows around 2000, circa 2008, 2009. Like Lin-Manuel was writing In the Heights, which was so exciting because we're like, whoa. I can maybe be in a play that isn't the one, like, in my book, my musical theater book, I had like Flower Drum Song, which is like the one young ingenue male Asian lead. But it was all of our classes where like, let's type you out. We need to figure out where you're gonna work. Where can you work? Because you're not gonna do 98% of these roles. And that sucks. That sucks to be an actor where we are, in my personal opinion, capable of anything. I think anyone is, but like from an acting perspective, we're supposed to be able to do any damn thing. But then to go, sorry, Ricco, you're too tall, or you're a little too brown, or like you're not like I mean, you guys, I've heard that's a whole other conversation. Yeah. The notes we've gotten, I'm sure, actually, Rómulo and I've had to have this conversation, but like, I would say, like from when In the Heights and going to see that show and being so excited, and then obviously like getting to tour, see Hamilton and all these shows where it's like, wow, look, we're purposefully putting folks of different ethnicities in different roles on stage, right? To see things from the voice world, which has always been to me a kind of like free for all. Felt like because you're behind a mic, right? No one knows what your face looks like, and yet.
Yeah, I was like, a free for all.
And yet, right? Exactly, exactly. For the people who've been working.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's the thing. It's like if you have a ton of experience in the field, you're gonna be good, right? If I hire any of you guys like 500 times in a row, I don't care if you're bad, by the 200th time, you're gonna start to learn something by like attrition, you know what I mean? That's how I learn. I just smack my face into the wall a bajillion times and I start to, get it. No pun intended off the My Hero thing. But like, permeation. But yeah, there have been times now where I've gotten sides where it's like, we want, an asexual actor here, or, we are casting a black actor or, actress for this role. So don't audition if you. And for me, my mantra, since I've been acting for many years now, I swing at everything. If it's like we want a female, I swing at it. I've booked roles like that. Like, not to be weird, but I'm an actor, you guys. Like, I will act and I'll perform, and it's my job to tell the story. Now, granted, I know, and I could expound on that, and I'm not gonna kind of cut myself off right now just to save some time because we got a lot of friends up here. But it's I'm a mixed race, I'm mestizo, I'm many ethnicities. I have found myself belonging to certain things when I needed to belong, and excluded when I needed to be excluded. And it is usually whoever's behind the director's seat that decides that, which is very interesting, because only when directors, typically people who are interested in casting people of color, have I started to book roles that I would normally not be considered for. But it was like because of this kind of larger awareness, I've always just been like, I'm just gonna keep auditioning and just keep getting better. I wanna be so stinking good. Like, you know that expression, be so good they can't ignore you. And I mean, like, I'm not tooting my own horn, I'm pretty flipping good at a lot of things that I do, but I'm still the way I look. Do you know what I mean? Which is like, that's a challenge. So, but anyway, I punt to Rome.
Thanks. I feel like my experience is a little bit different because I kind of maneuver more in the Latin American industry. I'm still getting my feet wet in the American market, but I have seen similar situations because, believe it or not, even in Latin America, there's a lot of, I guess I like to say like factions. So for example, there's a lot of dubs that, let's say they come from Mexico, and when you look at the casting list, they're all Mexican. Maybe you'll have one Venezuelan or one Chilean, but it's majority Mexican cast. Same thing, you look at a Venezuelan production and it's majority Venezuelan actors. And I get it, I mean, at the time, the whole remote system didn't exist, so obviously you had to cast with what you had in your hometown. But now with the remote, gives us the capability, I mean, I have access to the world that, you know, when I work as a director, I can now cast talents from all over the world. And one of the biggest, I wouldn't say critiques, I would say one of the most comments I kept getting was that, man, you're like breaking new ground. And I'm just like, how so? They're like, yeah, because you realize that your dub is including all these nationalities. And like I was telling Ricco when we were hanging out last night, like I'm just trying to meet a deadline and making sure the product sounds good. You know, I'm not looking at flags like, oh, you're from Mexico, come on over. Oh, I don't have enough Venezuelans. Like I just wanted people that were good. And it ended up kind of a byproduct was that I ended up creating like a true Latin American dub, which I'm extremely proud of. And I just later started learning like, oh, this wasn't like this before. So it is a curious experience because I don't consider that it was being gatekeeping or whatnot, but you could kind of say it was at a certain point because again, I was doing my research and looking at all these dubs. Okay, so the dub for Dragon Ball, okay, if I notice all these, it's just a bunch of Mexican flags, okay, so it's just a bunch of Mexican actors. Why didn't they include other actors? You know, and I guess, like I said, maybe for whatever reason, it was because of remote or whatnot, but that's just been the biggest like observation that I've been getting lately is like, man, you're including all these countries. And once again, I'm extremely proud and super like happy about that. But it's definitely a different experience because again, I haven't worked enough in English here to see that. I have been in a couple productions in English, but I haven't had that. I guess it's because I came now in the game where things are changing, which is good. It's good for me, it's good for us. But again, it's a different experience, and that's just how it rolls in Latin America. And now a lot of other directors from other countries are also now taking advantage of this remote opportunity, and they're also casting a bunch of talents from other countries. Another thing too is that most of the time, like when you think of Latin America, dubbing is most prevalent and strongest in like maybe Mexico. Mexico's like the king. Then you have Venezuela, and then Chile, and then Argentina. But then like you think about like Nicaragua and like El Salvador, there's not that many dubbing productions, there's not that many productions coming from those countries. But that doesn't mean that there's not amazing actors and people that aspire to be dubbing actors. Now with this remote capability, like I'm able to tap into those countries and give all these other nationalities the opportunity to do so. And again, I think it's a wonderful thing, and I agree with you guys, like the fact that all this is changing, like it gives a lot more people like opportunities that would have probably never happened because of maybe how, like you said, depending on who's the director see what their view is, or just the capability technological wise.
It feels like the through line for all of us is like there's a way how things were done a certain way, you know, and with the pandemic in a weird way, I feel it's shaken up everything. And already we were going through a little bit of a renaissance of having more people of color like appear on stage and behind the mic and everything. But now, so yeah, it's really open. It's made us look all over. You know, go, oh, And now, because it's challenging, I guess, the status quo and how things have been done, people, this is how it always was done.
Right.
Like how
If it ain't fixed, don't break. If it ain't broke, don't fix
right.
it.
It's like, well, maybe it was broken.
Maybe it was.
Yeah, I think
It took a pandemic to
a
figure
lot of
that
people
out.
were just like, "What? This was a thing? I didn't even realize."
Right.
And it was like,
But
yeah, okay, yeah. Because I was going to quit anime for a long. I was going to quit. I was like working on Big City Greens and just at the time. Like this is like before I was doing any anime, and I was like in LA, and I was like auditioning a lot. Or I wasn't auditioning a lot. I was like literally like. I would have to like keep tabs of like other people, like when audition would come out, like word would spread, like, oh, I didn't get that. Oh, I didn't get that. Oh, there's somebody auditioned for the black guy in that show, but I didn't get that. Or I didn't get to read for the lead. And then like another actor will have just gotten on the roster and be like, oh, I got to read for the lead. I was like, I've been on the roster for 3 years. Yeah, I didn't get to read.
You
Yeah.
don't get to swing. That drives me nuts.
And then sometimes they'll get a big show, and I won't read for it. And I was like, you know what? I don't want to do it anymore. Like
that's deflating. That's what makes actors not want to, you know what I mean? If you feel like you're not even allowed in the room, what the heck, dude?
Yeah.
Like you're gonna go to where you feel like you can get some traction. You know what I mean?
And I had lunch with an actor named Alan Lee, and he was like, "Don't do it." And I was like, "Give me a good reason why." Like I'm working on a show in the same building as the studio that does the anime, and they're still not sending me stuff. Like I see you. I look you in the face every day
through the blind, the Venetian blind. I see that sign.
Yeah. And he was like, "You just gotta you just gotta keep going. You just gotta keep doing it. Like I promise you, it's gonna pay off." And I was like, "Okay, well then that means."
What a terrible loss you guys would if Zeno.
Yeah, imagine had he not talked to me that day, I wouldn't be Hawks. I wouldn't be sitting here. Yeah, and so I was like, fine, then I'm just gonna annoy everyone until they hire me because they're already not hiring me. So what I'm gonna do? Get blacklisted from a studio that's already not hiring me. I'm already soft blacklisted already. So I just started doing research and being like, oh, I emailing I think you guys are gonna get this. Can I audition? And then the next month. Maybe you forgot. I think you're gonna get it. In case you did get it, can I audition? And then we auditioned.
Wow.
Oh, you got the audition. Can I read for this character? And and even then, I still wasn't really getting. I was getting more work, but I think Hawks really just took off. It people were like, oh, he can play the other things. And
You played Dataro Sasaki.
yes, yeah, I was talking
In the
to you
overhaul
first.
arc. For
Yeah.
you guys, who's seen? You guys caught up? This is gonna be weird.
On the
spoiler
anime?
stuff. The Mirio overhaul fight.
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Sasaki.
Yeah,
Dude.
Sakaki, right here, the
Sakaki,
jump guy.
sorry, thank you.
Nice.
His quirk is slosh.
Yeah.
His quirk is slosh.
Yeah, that was gonna be my tenure on My Hero Academia. before
You're
we
like,
did
oh,
it.
dope.
Yeah, I was like, cool, wow, I was part of the show. Yeah, that's a rare thing.
Hawks.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Not too after, so yeah, that was kind of my experience with anime was banging my head against the door and then being like, I don't need this anymore. And then as soon as I was I didn't feel pressure to I guess serve someone or be like, oh, I can't do that because what if I upset them? And then it's well, they're upsetting me. So what if I did this?
That brings me. Oh,
Please no. I'm just gonna say the frustration you guys of not being able to try.
Yeah, try. I think that's the most defeating thing. I don't mind auditioning and lose and not
Give me the
getting-
opportunity, man.
Yeah,
Exactly.
That's all I think.
Give me the
Actually-
chance to fail.
Yes,
Right.
exactly. I even if I know I'm not gonna get it, right? I'm not gonna get this, but I got to try. And I think that's more defeating as an actor of color. You already are telling me that you don't think I can do it. And I don't know why that is. But my brain is telling me it's because I'm black. And I have no proof telling me that that's not why, because other black actors in the area are saying the exact same things happening to them. So that's where my brain goes. And I thought it was crazy for a second. But I think that's the most defeating thing. Is you're already assuming something about me. And it feels like it's because it's me. You're taking other actors who are that coming after me that just email them and he'll be like, oh, I got the audition, thanks. I'm like, oh, that must be nice. Yeah, congrats, congratulations. Yeah, so
no, you're good. One thing I'm hearing through here is that one, you're all very accomplished and capable, but even that is to scale the wall, because as much as you can be capable, right? As much as you are working hard, and there's this old adage of for every a black person has to work twice as hard than a white person, or a person of color has to work twice as harder than a white person to achieve what, a modicum of the success. So that's the one through line that I'm getting here, and we can touch on that later. But the other thing that I keep on thinking about as well, and that keeps on coming in terms of like just anime and just, I guess, media in general, is that there's not enough work for people of color, so they're saying. But then the media itself doesn't have characters of color for these individuals. Like, way before we even get to like diversifying voice talent, the diversification of the actual media that is being made needs to be happen. And then that's not even taking into account the power structure, right? Like, what does the board of, and this is not a direct call out, this is just the first example. What does the board of Funimation look like? What does the production and the producer and the director staff of My Hero Academia look like? Granted, I don't know off the top of my head, just an example. But there is that hurdle first. So just speaking on the lack of diversity and representation in the media itself, what's the thought process on that? How do you feel about that? And where do you think stories are going now? And I mean, this is a huge question too.
We're seeing it right now. Like, I brought up In the Heights, you guys, like Lin-Manuel, back when he was like talented, all his friends like are, of color, and they're not booking these jobs because in Chicago, typically everyone in that show is white. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you see the story, we are familiar with the story, you're gonna cast it in order to make sense for what people see. I mean, that's just being a good director, right? You're trying to tell the story the way that people want the story to be told. Lin was like, I am not getting the work, right? I'm going to create a play called In the Heights, Washington Heights, with a bunch of, folks that look like me, and I can cast my friends. And and don't get me wrong, it's like, there's all different ethnicities, but it's like, that was ground shaking for me. Because it went from, I can audition for 2 roles versus I can now, there's one play. Oh, I got this one play, you guys. And if I could be in that, like, wouldn't that be amazing? But then it went further. Now you see things like Hamilton, right? Where it's like, George Washington seemed like a very Anglo-looking man, but look, we have a black man portraying him on stage, and it's like, this is fine, right? Like, we can enjoy that, we can cast different people as different things and still get the story, right? So there's like, and we were just talking about Encanto earlier, and the music of Encanto, where like, when you see the so here's the thing, specificity is key in all art. Granted, when we see something like Hamilton, and we know, we look at the quarter, we're like, that's George Washington. That doesn't look like that. This George Washington sings a lot better. Like, but whatever, like, we still are getting the story. We can understand that there are other people in this world that might not look like us, but we could still receive, right? With Encanto, has everyone seen that movie?
Yeah.
Yes.
Very good. Go see it.
Literally, I was talking to one of my friends, like, they saw one of the kiddos with the curly, Afro-Latino hair, and just started weeping. Because it's like, oh my God, like, I literally know that not even the specificity, you guys, in like the lip coloring, in like, it's things that you see, like, I'm mixed, but I know what a Thai person looks like. I know what a Chinese person looks like. I know what a Filipino person looks like. I have an understanding of it, and to see it represented in media in a way with the specificity, the grace, and the attention to detail is like, it'll stop your heart. Because I mean, like, they did a Pixar short where it was it was actually Spider-Man with a Filipina grandma, the family, the whole. I was like, they showed, you guys, I could weep right now when they showed all this stuff on the walls. I was like, that's like in my grandma. Like, I literally can fucking cry right now, you guys. Like, I've never seen that in my life.
I'm reminded of a Junot Diaz quote, and I don't know verbatim, but essentially what Junot Diaz presents is that what makes a vampire, right, is that it can't see itself in the mirror. So the one-to-one comparison to that is people of color. We don't see ourselves reflected in the media that we consume, then you are making us monsters. Dracula is a monster, can't see themselves in the mirror. And in today's world, the mirror is the movies, the cartoons, the books, the comics, the manga, all that stuff.
It was crazy. It was getting to a point where like I could like watch a movie and know when the black guy was gonna die. Or like I would be like, I remember watching Chronicle. I was like, yo, if this black dude dies, I'm walking out of this theater. And guess who died first? It's like you just know, like that's what like they put you in. I didn't start becoming like really aware of like, you know, because he was talking about it's like what we consume, right? And like I think like Ricco has a good point of like what we consume as audience members. And a lot of the times before we became aware of our racial identity and our place in the world within it, we were consuming other people's stories, and it was fine until we realized, like, you know, like there was a point in time where I dressed up as Batman Beyond because he was cool. Like I didn't see it like that. But then I was like, oh wait, I'm black. Like, where is the superhero that has my hair? And then I was like, oh, Static, he's my favorite now because he looks like me. And like Dwayne McDuffie is like one of like the kind of driving cornerstones of my opinions on diversity. And like, because that's always what he pushed since the foundation of Milestone and the creation of characters like Static. And like, now we start seeing it in things like Spider-Verse, where the Latino community is represented, and we have Miles speaking Spanish, which is something that like a lot of people can relate to. I have, you know, Craig of the Creek, which is a show like I love for its diversity alone. Like I remember watching the ending sequence of Craig of the Creek, and it's Craig and his little sister and his dad and his mom eating at the table talking, and I thought that was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen on television, because often black stories are rooted in pain and suffering and, oh, I grew up without a dad. And while that's true for a lot of people, like, I also want to see depictions of characters of color who aren't struggling, you know, but maybe
a healthy family.
Yeah, a healthy family. Like, well, can I get that, please? Everybody else gets to see that, what that looks like. And like that's kind of where, like I always tell this story about Ogun. You know, Okubo, Atsushi Okubo, who made Soul Eater, he made Fire Force. Like if you look at the history of black people through anime, right? We started off with like Cyborg 009 is a highly acclaimed 80s anime, but I think we can all agree that Puma is 008, the African representative, who hasn't always looked the best. His design was, and you can literally follow it change up until Call of Justice, like where it started off with the big eyes and the big lips and then like even in the 2000s where he still looks like that, and then in the movie and now he looks like a human being, and like you can literally kind of
watch his humanization.
Yeah, you know, you can track
That's wild,
how
man.
the opinion of like how black people are represented in anime like has changed through Puma, and like characters like Ogun. And Keelik from Soul Eater, you know, like where they get more screen time, where they're not like a device to die for the main character, or like a plot device to lose their major fight and wait for the hero. Like Ogun is a character who was like not just strong, but he was there from the beginning. And he knew the heroes, and he played an integral role in this season, and he like got a nice little fight scene where he didn't die, you know. So you could kind of see like how things are slowly progressing in the industry, in the stories. It's pretty cool.
Rómulo, you had yours ready, right?
No, I got this
like
one
me
right now,
to,
because again, it's like I maneuver in the Latin American market, and although I do see what's going on and I'm greatly appreciated by it, my experience is like really vastly different because of where the circles that I move in, and it's more of a nationality thing. And again, it goes back to like what I was saying earlier, like most of the dubs, you only hear a certain, in Spanish, it's pretty interesting because there is what we call the neutral Spanish accent, because as we all know, Chileans speak Spanish, Venezuela speaks Spanish, but they all have their different way of saying certain words, and they have their idioms and their colloquial phrases. So what Latin America did is they created what's called the neutral Spanish, so you say like one word, and that word means this thing for all countries. Like we know that when we say this word, this is what this means. And because, okay, I'll give you an example, like the word tire in Spanish, depending on where you're from, you call it goma, llanta. So we created a word called neumático, and that is like the neutral word for tire for all the countries. When you say neumático, everybody in every country knows what you're talking about. And so one of the things that would happen is that depending on where you were from, your accent would kind of like sometimes seep out, because sometimes you can't hide your accent no matter how much you try to neutralize your accent. You're still gonna hear the way certain words and certain vowels sway. And a lot of people would call that out. They would say, that's not neutral Spanish. Oh no, you could tell he's from this country. And it's pretty interesting because like I'm listening to these stories, and although I've never experienced it, I've experienced it in the Latin community. And it's pretty intense. And so it's even more intense for me because I'm born and raised here in the US, but I'm a Spanish voice actor. So a lot of my work goes into Latin America. And I've had my work criticized, like every actor does. And one of the main things they always criticize is, oh, you can hear his gringo accent. And I'm just like, man, but like, what are you talking about? Like, Spanish is my first language. Like, I speak the neutral Spanish because I'm getting contracted by these clients. But again, it's just that, I guess, I don't want to say, I don't like using the word tribalism. I would say it's more like factions, like, oh, he's from this country, he doesn't represent my country. So you get a lot of that. And so because of the neutral Spanish now, we're able to kind of like minimize that, and that's why a lot more countries are being able to participate in these Spanish dubs. And one of the main things, that I feel is a high compliment is when I'm speaking Spanish and they're like, wait a minute, what country, where are you from? You know, because usually back in the day when I would gig in music and people would look at me and be like, oh, you're from Mexico, right? I'm like, no, I'm Ecuadorian, not everything is in Mexico. I mean, I'm from Ecuador. Oh, what part of Mexico is that? I'm like, that's not how that works. I got that a lot, you know, and now it's pretty cool to, like, when I speak Spanish and people, like, either from the Venezuelan or Chilean, they're like, yo, where you from? Like, I can't tell where you're from. And that's kind of the point, you know, is like, yeah, I represent my country from Ecuador, but because I've neutralized my Spanish so much, because I've gotten beaten over the head by critics, that, you know, it's kind of a cool thing to be able to be part of this community in the dubbing world, because that's what's expected. I don't think, does that happen in English? Because I notice when I watch English dubs.
No, if you're black, you ruin it.
No, I know that you can get away with certain like sayings, like, you know, like, oh, what you doing? Get over here, you get over here, or stuff like. In Spanish, that is not accepted. Everything has to be pronounced very clean and very articulate. And that's why if you have a certain accent from a certain country, they call you out on it. And so, again, because of the neutrality of the whole Latin thing, of the diction and the accent, a lot more actors from different diverse countries are being able to participate in these dubs.
I actually think that's exactly what actors of color go through here, is we have to learn how to neutralize how we speak in order to be in dubs. If you're perceived as to this or to that, you won't get you won't even get the chance to have a critic say.
I've been through that.
You know,
I get it.
like that, like a lot. Like we've sat and talked to casting directors, like from anime, like in the back when like a lot of the community were upset about a particular show, which I will not name, but the main character was black, and they were performed by a non-black actress. When there were plenty of talented black actresses in the area who could have played that role. One black actress was actually told, in a different role, was told to change their voice because they sound too close to the main character. It was mind-boggling. Absolutely mind-boggling.
That's crazy.
And so we had sat down and we had, because of the way that show had panned out, like a lot of us in the community were like, we're sick of this. Like, we should like do something. And so we started like sitting with casting directors and talking down with them, talking not down to them, but like talking with them.
You need to change.
Hey, okay. And I think that was also spurred on by the Black Lives Matter movement, right? I think it spurred a lot of us on. Something we got back from one of them was like, yeah, like we just don't know if like they can change the accent to be in the dub. Like we don't know if they can like neutralize their speak. We're not sure. And that's why sometimes like we don't send it to them, because we're out working on deadlines. We know anime is a very fast-paced work.
Oh, it is.
Very fast-paced. Like you get the show Monday and it's due Monday. And you get a show Monday, it's due Monday, and you ask, can we please get it to you on Friday? So sometimes they're like, we're not sure if they can neutralize how they talk, so they don't get considered. And like that's what I felt like I had to do, is like, and I've been told my whole life I talk white anyway, which is essentially like, it's essentially you talk American or you talk neutral, right? You don't talk black, whatever that means. So it's like I've been told that my whole life, but now when it can be useful, I look too black to be able to do it.
Again, like I said, I agree, because I was born and raised here. My first language is Spanish. And I think, like I told Ricco yesterday, it's like my mom was like, listen, English with your friends and Spanish at home. I hated it at the time. I hated it. I was like, I want to speak English. But now I'm so grateful for it, because, I'm able to communicate thoroughly and be able to, like, convey certain emotions and articulate everything in both languages just as easy. But still, it's like people kept looking at me as like, no, you're American. I could hear it. And I'm like, no, you can't. You just see my flag and you're just assuming that I'm American, so therefore, like, I have an accent. I've worked with other studios, and I know for a fact I speak neutral Spanish. Like I know for a fact I'm getting hired. So it was tough. So that's why I resonate with everything what you're saying.
When
I've
you, when you
through
said
it.
the word neutral, I was like, yep.
I'm going. I mean, I'm still kind of going through that now, you know. But because the market has changed, and now more countries are being involved in Latin American dubs, it's kind of opened the doors, just like it is here, for a lot of other countries to participate in dubs. Because yeah, there's a neutral accent, but I mean, it's not necessarily neutral fully because people's the way of speaking is always you're gonna tell to a certain extent. You know, yeah, you want to neutralize it so people can understand, because the point is for people to understand what you're saying and to use these words that are, you know, neutral for all countries to understand. But you're still gonna have your swag from whatever country you're from, and that's okay, you know. But for a while, it was like very like not accepted, man. And like I said, like with me, it was like, oh, you can tell he's gringo. I can't name you how many times they would toss that at me. I'm like, dude, do you see my face? Do you see what I look like?
Look at my hair.
Dancing between all of this, where I've done a commercial where they're like, we want to sound, you know, more Filipino. Can you make it more Filipino? I'm like, yeah, okay, dig it. And I'm doing one where I'm playing, you know, we need the Persian Farsi. You really need to, like, you know, just loosen it up. So I'm like, being mixed race, where I can be ambiguously brown, and I'm many a thing. I have to paint with specificity.
Yeah.
Because it's disrespectful if it's not.
You don't want to cross that line.
But here's the thing. What a strange thing to have. We need you to neutralize it. We need you to be neutral, whatever that is. Right? Neutral is taking away the extra, you know, maybe if I'm from Texas and I drop a y'all in there, and you're like, oh, you just said y'all. I'm like, no, I didn't. I'm like, what are you talking about, bro? I'm from West Coast. I'm from California, born and raised, bro. Like, for real, my whole life. Like, the way you bend a vowel immediately, you hear, this is from here, and that's a human thing, right? Because you're like, oh yeah, you're Venezuelan. Oh yeah, Portugal. Like, you have all these different things that come up. But like, to bring it back to Encanto, when all of a sudden you get the specificity and it's done in a way that the story's delivered to you purposefully, and with that direct, like, the brilliance, you get it right away. You get the story, you get it. But as actors, if I were to say to Zeno, I need you to neutralize it. To me, that feels like such a, like I'm tranquilizing you, or I'm doing something to like.
Don't be yourself.
Yeah, it's essentially being like, hey, we know you're black. Can you just not be though?
It's also. It's also.
Oh, good note. I'll take that.
Yeah. Okay. Less black. Got it.
Black.
How do I do
it feels
How do I do
like.
that again?
Yes.
What do I do? What do I change exactly?
Yeah.
I think also it bears noting that when people refer to neutral or base, they're referring to whiteness. And it's not like, because neutral isn't just like, hey, can you just be a gray person? Just like, it's an amalgamation of everything. No, it's like, usually when people be like, can you be more normal? Normal, or what we dub as normal, tends to always lean towards whiteness. And I'm being very specific here, like, it's whiteness, not like white people. Because
like
the institutions of
Spanish,
each.
right? Like there's a norm, right?
Yeah, like the majority.
The majority. So yes, you want Mexican Spanish, right?
And that happens a lot too, because they assume, okay, for starters, Mexico is like the pioneer in dubbing. They're like the best. They're the ones that pretty much started pioneering this industry. But because of that, is like, I guess when people refer to, I need you to speak neutral. Oh, you mean Mexican? No, neutral.
Right.
Like, I need you to neutralize the Spanish. And that's another thing that I also deal with, is like, no, it's not, I'm not saying I want you to speak Mexican. I just want you to speak neutral, because that's what the client wants and what the industry, you know, demands. But again, like I said, now it's kind of getting a little bit more loose, you know, in the sense where like now certain types of things are being accepted. I've even seen it in one occasion where a certain anime was dubbed twice, one with neutral Spanish and one with Argentinian Spanish. So like the Argentinian culture could like have their idioms
Connect to it.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool.
That's cool. Like, and I think that's an experience that people get here. Like when I got to play Ogun, I told Kyle, I was like, I'm gonna make him really black. Like, I'm gonna make him as black as I can.
Blackity black.
Yeah, like I'm gonna throw in as many bruhs and yos as I can.
And I think that's great, because like we could connect with that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Like,
saying?
I was
That's we're human.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
Black people gonna love this. Like, they're gonna like this. Yeah, and they did. You know? Like, I like when I get to do that. Like, even like it's so interesting, like how that works, because like I played Kagami in Kuroko's basketball, and he's from America, but America ended up him just like speaking more slang. So I was like, that's in the world of Kuroko, America is like speaks more street, right?
Yeah, Americans are more
yeah,
loose.
yeah, right. Like he goes ain't and you know what I'm saying? And like I guess I was like kind of not the perfect person, but like I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna make a kind of black man. You know,
You are.
He plays basketball. You know, he hangs out with black people at least. So it's like, but it's just that's interesting that's American for that show, even though like to be in any other show where it's an American dub, I have to neutralize it.
I think that's beautiful. Like that just shows how the rest of the world views America.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? It's like, oh yes, we are. I would hope that the world looks at us like we are of many ethnicities, but it's like, yeah, they're more relaxed and loud. Americans are loud.
Yeah, Americans are loud and angry.
That's a big. Jumping off of that, I wanted to talk about. So at the top of this, I was talking about how Jenny Slate took let go of her role as Missy on the show Big Mouth, and anime is going through its own its second boom because of the pandemic. People engaging with the hobby and with the media more, and here we are also. Anime is becoming more globalized than it ever has been before. You see more characters of different ethnicities and races and creeds within anime. Like, if you were to just go back 5, maybe 10 years, it was fairly hegemonic, right? So 2 things with that. I think this is just like anecdotal, and we could challenge this, but there's sort of like earlier when I was coming up, I'm 29 years old right now, right? When I was coming up in anime, it was not until like Tite Kubo drew like the blind black dude, I was like, dang, like, yeah, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
that was healing solely for me. I was like, oh wait, black people are in these things?
Yeah, and then even with Chad being the Mexican, the Mexican transplant to Japan, right? So I was like, oh shit, pardon me.
That's how powerful it was.
That's preach. Yeah.
I was like, dang, I ain't crying. I'm cool. But there used to be like a sort of sterility, right? There used to be like a sort of like, oh, there's no race here. Everyone's implied to be Japanese, by my perception, right? Or like we're in Japan, but like this dude's blonde, you know? Like Sailor Moon is blonde, even though she's Usagi. She's a Japanese woman, right? So that being said, combining these 2 things. So don't worry, long-winded, but I'm getting somewhere. Watch. Combining these 2 things, with anime incorporating more, diversity itself, where does the debate of like, where should a non-white character be voiced by a non-white person fit in anime in itself, right? I got it, y'all.
This is a tough one for me.
So I'll give you 2 examples of something.
Okay.
The show that I talked about, the show that went on Netflix and everybody was upset about. The reason why that was a big deal was because there were black actresses on the roster who did not even get the opportunity to read for the black coded character. Almost spoiled it. Character on the show, right? That was the big issue. It wasn't the fact of who ended up playing it. It was like these other women, okay, whatever. These other people who saw themselves in the character didn't get a chance to play the character. They will never get an opportunity to play a black lead in an anime show because that doesn't happen.
Correct.
Right? So it's like, why would you take that opportunity from someone and give it to someone who already plays several leads, who doesn't really need the work? And I think that's the biggest thing. It's not really about who gets to play what, it's about opportunity and reflection. Diversity is important because it allows. Ricco was talking about how Encanto touched him or Spider-Man spoke to him because they did something in their storytelling that made him feel seen. And I think the same thing applies with actors. I get a lot of people coming up to me who feel seen by my presence in the industry, no matter who I'm playing. Just me being in a medium that they love means that I am also a reflection of you. I'm a reflection of them. And that's why I think it's important for POCs to play non-POC characters, because those are the characters that usually get the most attention or depth in this particular medium. Until it's equalized across the board, and it's not.
I do want to give we'll run down through the rest of this answer for everybody else, and then I want to open the floor to questions.
Okay.
Just briefly, was just informed that we have some time.
Okay. I auditioned for a show, and I auditioned because I knew the character was like Indian. And I was like, there's no way that Funimation has like enough actors of color of anywhere close to India on their roster. So I don't want to do it, but I'm gonna audition just in case, as a backup plan, in case I can't find one. And then I was offered the role. And then I was like, you know what? I shouldn't do this. Because I remember what it felt like to be Ogun and to be like a singular, like, this character represents a group of people, and a group of people felt seen through my playing of this character. So I want some other actor to feel what that feels like. This might be the only Indian character we see in an anime for the next 2 years. I don't want to take that from someone. So I found like 7 Indian actors to give to this casting director on my own. And I was like, hey, I'm gonna decline, and I hate declining work, but I was like, I'm gonna decline because I don't think I should do this. But I'm not gonna leave you with nothing. I'm going to give you all of these people, because it should be one of these guys. Like, they're in my range. It should be one of these guys. They know what to do. And she hired one of them, and he did great. But he wrote me this long email thanking me and how excited he was to play one of like the few Indian characters ever to exist. And I think like it's about that more than who gets to do what. I think I feel like a lot of outside people get offended. Like, oh my gosh, it's politics and it's respectability. It's not about that. It's about like, one, as an artist, I get to finally see myself in something that I love, and I get to be that for other people who can see themselves in not just this character, but also in me playing the character. And I think that's equally as important. I think it's all about like where culturally the character comes from. I was like, if this guy is like, if he's, black and from nowhere and didn't grow, you know what I'm saying? Anybody can do it, right? But like, I probably couldn't play that Indian character. I don't speak any kind of, South Asian language. I don't know anything about that culture. So if anything in that show were to come up, it would be me either doing research or really, really winging it, which I'm an actor, I could probably do it well, but somebody else is going to know that like even 2% more accurately than me. And that is more, I think, more accurate. And I think that'll be more honest to whoever that character is. That's a long-winded explanation, but that's kind of my thinking. Is it always has to start with where this character is from culturally. If they're from anywhere, then anybody. But like culturally, what's this character? Who are they? Like that character from the Netflix show. Like, they were black, they had dreads, they were Timbs. I was like, come on. And they're like, they're black. There's no questioning like where this character might be from. Like, it's clear. If it was ambiguous, then sure. But like, they're black. Like that's my perspective. Is like when you can tell, it's like let somebody who can accurately do that.
I told this story last night to Rom at dinner. You guys remember in school the Scantron?
Yes.
And you gotta fill in your race. And you can put white, black, Latino,
Pacific
Asian, Pacific Islander, or other.
Other.
Imagine being a 7-year-old and othering yourself. Literally filling in a bubble that says, I'm not like any of you. This is one of the reasons why I wanted to be an actor, is because I am white, I am Native American, when I did my 23andMe, I'm all over the place. And one of my favorite shows is Ghost in the Shell, because of the disidentification of race in that, the metaphor of that with Kusanagi, Major, where people see this beautiful Anglo woman, right, this white woman. You are not from Japan, you are this crazy, super strong cyber robot, but you are not that. You are something else. And I think that is, especially with gender now, a lot of questions of stuff nowadays with these other things that arise with identity, it's who are you really, when someone says who are you, I think about all of that whenever I come to the table with acting. And I want to believe that Zeno, Rom, even Reggie, we could all, as actors, come up and perform anything. Any of you, we are all capable of any damn thing. I believe that, like performance-wise. We can do it. You can do the darn thing. That said, representation really matters. Because when there are other people in the world that say, wow, you really touched me with your performance of Mirko, whatever it is. What do you look like? I want to know who this actor is. And I don't see, you know, an heiress. Maybe I see my friend Alexis Tipton, who plays, you know, Mei Hatsume. And I'm like, oh wow, what a beautiful woman this is. Like, and I'm so excited to meet her and I'm like that. Like, that's very cool. I'm like, oh, you know, it might not look like the character, and then I'll just, you know, we'll clock it because we grew up watching cartoons of whatever. And that's another thing, by the way. Animation is a beautiful world, you guys, because we can do anything with it. It's not film. It's not like, there's such liberty in animation. I think there's something inside of it that makes it really special to all of us, because we can find ourselves in ways that we can't in any other mediums. That's why sometimes books are even more liberating, because it's like, do you know what I mean? There's so much, it's in your mind, man. You know, like, so, but all of that said, when it comes to seeing the artist, and I love Mirko, and I met an heiress, I'm like, wow, that's so cool, that's so exciting. And to see fans, and that's what it is. It's like, you can see yourself in that art. Is really what it's about. Video games, I'm a big gamer, like, again, we were talking about that. Like, as a mixed race person, I want to believe that we all have the ability to see ourselves in anything. Truly, because I'm not white enough to be white. I'm not Filipino enough to be Filipino. Although, ironically, if I go, oh no, you're Filipino, and I'm like 6 foot tall, like looming over all, like, yes, I'm Filipino. Like, but like, I don't look, you know, I kind of do. I'm in the middle. And whenever I talk to like my non-binary trans friends, I'm like, I feel like I kind of understand a little bit, like, you know, what's happening, not exactly, but like the idea that I am this thing, but I'm not. But typically people will try to codify you and say, like, if you let the world do it, the world will do it.
Yep.
So
That's why you can't.
That's why you can't. That said, man, sorry, Reggie, I lost the question as we went.
I'm just out of here.
Reggie's like, I'm done, dude. Sorry, guys, I pissed Reggie off. But yeah, I think I want to believe that for my sake, as who I am, and from speaking from my experience, second generation American, my family immigrated here, trying to be a part of America and sacrifice everything. Don't worry about your language. Don't worry about, just be American. That way you don't get hurt and you don't die. Like, that's the big priorities, right?
Really?
Immigrant families. Just come here, get a job, and don't die, please. I'm like, okay, cool, copy that. But then you realize again, the art you've been consuming, all this starts to become clear, and you go, but you know what? This is our life, you guys, and we're living it one day at a time. And if we're consuming, you start seeing these stories, this stuff affects you. Like, if you see something out there's a game that touches you, or there's a character that touches you, and the actor, also just so happens to look like you or represents the character, like, I think that is a good sign of change, considering that most of entertainment was represented by mostly one race for a long time. I mean, like, I shouldn't say one race. I feel like, because it's like, even then I'm like a quarter Irish, a little bit of, I like different kind of like specificity inside of there. Specificity, there's that word again. Like,
very important word in acting too.
it's a very important word. But that's what I want to believe, and that's where I put all my chips on, is that we all, not to be cheeseball, but we are like all the same, really. It's just, we want to also be exceptional. So how do we do that? What's the duality of being exceptional while also, God, I get emotional thinking about this, guys. Every time I always want to tell you, I want to spill my heart, but it's hard. It's really hard, because it's tough not to be black. It's tough not to be, what is that a weird thing to say?
No.
It's hard not being black, dude. I gotta say that, I'm honest. It's hard not being full Filipino. It's not hard being full, full, to be enough, to be.
I'm fully black, and I still don't feel black enough. So, it's hard not to be black.
So whatever that feeling though.
And it's also hard being black.
So that feeling of lack, or whatever it is, you guys, that every human being has its own capacity. I feel like with acting, I'm like, if it's any one thing I can do with my life, it would be to show that.
You got it.
God. It would just be to show, I can't look at you. It would just be to show that truly, you are limitless.
I can't top that.
You don't need to top it. You don't need to top
That was
it.
amazing. That was amazing. I got none for that. The only thing that I can add to that is when you said about feeling like you belong, is that, again, speaking from the Latin American perspective, once I started including all these other actors from all these other countries, my DMs were flooded. I remember I got like a bunch of messages from people from Peru, and they're like, dude, thank you. Thank you for like including these Peruvian actors, because we were never in these big productions, and I feel so I can identify with all these actors that are from my country, and thanks to you, now I know that my country like has the opportunity. And I was like, oh my God, like I didn't, like again, at the time I'm just, like you were just grinding, you were just trying to make the delivery dates and turning these productions in. Like it didn't really cross my mind. And like it's now, even while having this conversation, like it's enlightening me even more. I'm like, wow, like this is really serious what's going on here in Latin America and what I've been able to be a part of. Argentinians, same thing. People from like Venezuela, they're like, thank you, thank you. I'm glad that this person from my country was able to be part of this amazing project. And again, I was just like, really, like that's crazy, and putting it into perspective is like I was mentioning before, most of these things were usually closed off depending on what country. And like I was mentioning before, Mexico was like dominating for the most part the dubs, and they're amazing. They're doing amazing work. But because of the remote capabilities, like now, other countries are being included in these wonderful anime projects. And that's lately what my inboxes has been getting flooded with. Not just like, hey, I love the work. No, they're like, thank you. Yep. Thank you so much, because like now my country is part of this. Like I could say, like I could be, I could show like face, like yeah, my country participated in this amazing anime, and that like blew my mind. That to me blew my mind. That was amazing.
Those are all very fantastic answers. I just wanted to take a moment to take a breath to see how are you all feeling. We're now like what time is it right now? Let me find out real quick.
2:50.
It's tomorrow.
Yeah. we're about we're 6 minutes over time. I was just conferring with the the room leads. Do you feel comfortable taking some questions, or do we think?
Let's do
We relax,
it.
yeah.
Just want to check in because you have other commitments, and we still got a booth.
To raise our hand or go to the mic?